I hereby call Accountant Finance meeting, May 24th, 2008, 4 p.m. to order. The only agenda item we have today, Mr. Manager, is the fiscal 2019 budget. I just made an attempt to call Mr. Nash. Maybe he'll be here shortly. I don't foresee this being a very long meeting, but you have the floor.
And Jennifer Hardy made the adjustments from the last time we met, and the adjustments are relatively light. We have they were mostly in salaries, and the difference between across the board salary increase and a merit increase. Those positions were changed. I've met with the chairwoman of the chairperson for the Police and Employment Committee this afternoon and explained her the justifications for each of those positions that had been adjusted. She said if she had any questions, she'd be in contact, but did not immediately sound the alarm that she was dissatisfied with any of those decisions that the chief or the town manager had recommended on salary increases. Okay. That we discussed with the chairman. You have a copy of those. I think they've been distributed to council as well.
If memory serves me, I think at the end of the meeting, there was a lot going on Monday night. But I think I kind of briefed the council on it. And although it's like pulling teeth sometimes with these folks, I didn't hear anybody. I didn't see any shoulders drop or anything else. So, Mr. McCure, if it suits you to go forward with the 3% merit raise, I'm fine with it too. Included in our recommendation to council. Do you have any?
People we've done already.
You talking about in the past?
Well, what's going to be the net effect of going to 3% right now on the merit rate?
It dropped from 76,000 to 70,000 by adjusting that.
We've already given, 25, 30 people merit rate.
Well, this is what I perceive, and if you'll help me, Philip, is the town has not been able to afford in the last 8 years to, and look, I'm not trying to lecture you. I mean, you had a tremendous part in getting us where we could do it, but we haven't been using our normal historical increases across the board for quite some time. We couldn't afford it. So I think the 25 people, I'll use your sum, that have had adjustments was because of their position. I mean, they become greater efficient in their position. Merit raises, whatever, to catch them up to where the manager was comfortable with what we were paying to reward and retain, if you will. Okay, that's my view. Now, what do you have, Mr. Manager?
Last time we gave a raise, a standard raise across the board, I think it was in 2013 or 2014. It's our intention because of the energy and the effort, and by some employees who are no longer with us chose a different path, but the employees that have stuck with us are here because they understand the system, they understand work, and they understand doing things. The net effect is $70,000, and I think a small price to pay to keep the qualified folks we've got. We're satisfied.
We talked the other day about it, and we looked at it, and there was an effort being made to go to a merit system as opposed to a.
That is a merit system. That's what we've called it.
Across the board.
Right. Okay.
Now, what I understand, and maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, I tell you what I've done. I tell you,
guarantee
I'd like to apologize to you. I have definitely put the cart in front of the horse. So you're asking bona fide questions, and I have failed as the chairman to report to you of the hour or so meeting that I had with the manager that we agreed upon.
That caught me by this.
All right, so let me back up. Please forgive me. Okay, for those in the audience and the tape, our last finance committee meeting, Philip has proposed a 3% across the board raise.
We questioned.
And we questioned it, and I still question it. And we agreed that we would meet and go over the figures. And as usual, Mrs. Hardy had outstanding documentation and, she makes Philip look good. But anyway, staff had everything ready for me. Philip and Jennifer did a great job. And it became clear to me after going through each department that we only had a few that didn't deserve an increase. So what we're proposing is it 8 town associates? Is it 8 that won't receive the 3%?
Nine.
Nine,
not,
nine.
And 2 are reduction, 2 are getting 2%.
Okay, so what we came up with was, and it saved us a little money, but it was all but 9 of our town associates would receive a 3% increase, 2 would get a 2% increase, and 9 would receive no increase. And we went over it twice because, like I said, everything was laying right there. That chimpanzee I talked about that does the VEMA rate could have done it too.
That's really not my question.
Okay, but I want to make sure you understand what
I
I've done
understand
to
what
get
you're
to this point. I liked it so much that we baked it in for your approval.
Well,
Okay,
I only have a question to ask.
okay.
Are we on a merit system or are we on a automatic step?
No, this is totally merit. This is totally merit. So,
What about a year from now?
well, I won't be here and you won't either. That'd be their
Well, I'm trying
problem.
to- Well, we're setting the stage.
No.
What we're doing is we're correcting.
In my opinion, Mr. Moncur, this will balance the tide. This will have our workforce adequately funded, where we can reward and retain, in my opinion. Now, we went over it and 3% was a benchmark. It worked really good. And the reason that we had some employees that we said only deserve 3 is because they had a $2 raise a year or so ago, for example. So I'm very satisfied to leave council,
So you're talking about putting a 3% in for everybody right now? aren't you?
except 2 people get 2 and 9 don't get anything, which is maybe roughly 20% of our workforce won't see an increase.
Well, all right.
And in my opinion, we're leaving, you and I are leaving the pay and the budget as well as I could have dreamed when we took it on 4 years ago. So this to me is the final step. The town can afford it. We're not having any rate increases. We're not having any tax increases. So for lack of a better term, we've won. We have succeeded what we plan to do. This is the last step, in my opinion. The accounts are segregated. We've got $2 million at benchmark.
You have 2.5 now.
$2.5 million undesignated at benchmark. Are you kidding me? So, anyway, that's my opinion. Now, I'm sorry to cut you off. We'll make sure you got all the information.
Well, you're right. I'm not gonna be here, you're not gonna be here. But that doesn't mean that I don't wanna leave it in the best shape I know how to do it. Now, I do not think, and as a matter of principle, I do not think it's right to go through and, on a large scale, give out merit increases, and then turn around and right on top of it, give across the board percentage increase.
Well, I don't. If memory serves, you have 2 town associates that are getting a bump before the increase. Is that right?
I think there's $1 or $2 in there for
Melvin?
Allison Payne, and $1 or $2 from Melvin Hicks.
Right.
Is that correct? The 2 officers, or the 2.
So the only 2 we only have 2 now. Philip is much better at this, but this is a one-on-one conversation that I'm enjoying.
Well, it's for everybody.
Well, that's fine, but you've got to take in consideration we lost two players that were doing a tremendous amount of responsibilities, and we've distributed those responsibilities, and now we're in a position we can distribute compensation. It's Melvin Hicks. Melvin has gone from being a great worker to a supervisor, and he was making like $11 an hour when I came
good
on
too.
here.
I mean, he stays on that grass, Jack.
So that's what I'm saying,
Well,
in my
let's face
opinion.
it, we've taken what we had and readjusted and
Yes.
reallocated.
Right.
And you've done the same thing with the money.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't alleviate the fact that you're gonna have to turn around. And no two way, you're gonna have to turn around and replace these bodies on your payroll. Because you're getting so thin in some areas, that you can hardly operate.
We're not asking for any new positions.
No,
I think there is a new
Well,
position
well,
in the
in-
budget,
not right now, you
electric.
don't.
Oh,
But it's setting yourself up in a position.
where's your crystal ball? I mean,
It's just that I've been in business too damn many years to know that when you get down thin, you can only operate that way for so certain period of time.
so what is
And you
your,
got, well,
so if that's the
you're gonna get
case,
yourself right back in the same position, is all I'm saying.
all right, well, offer me a proposal then.
Well, I wasn't involved in this one.
All right, well,
I
if you
know.
don't,
I'm really not that comfortable with how we arrived at this. I'm not objecting to it, mind you. I'm just questioning whether the fact that our effort to get on a merit system as opposed to a cross-board percentage system, which is cumulative, and the good get it and the bad get it too.
well, I put Moncure's feather in my hat and went to this meeting, and I was more than willing. I had blocked off the entire morning and lunch, and I would have gone through every associate and listened to Philip's testimony, and came back with a recommendation. But after doing one department, I saw where what we came up with was pretty much, I'm not going to say identical, but it was very much in the ballpark of what we would have done if we'd have went tediously with and drug department heads in here and all that stuff. It would have been a pretty similar outcome. Is my point.
That's not what I'm questioning.
All right.
I only asked the question, is where are we on increases as far as theory and philosophy of giving increase?
Well, what I thought I heard is your objection to an across the board raise, which we haven't done since the first year my second term in 2014. So I'm sorry, 2014 was done by the other council. We have not presented a budget to council with an across the board raise. We're setting an example and setting the tone for a merit raise. But I'm sorry that we've thinned it down to a certain amount.
I'm not questioning what this, I just asked the question, where does this put us as far as where we're going and how we're gonna get there?
I'm trying to tell you, I think we're setting examples for councils to come to get away from the 2%, 3% across the board. I don't care if you show up to work or not mentality. But in the other previous budgets we've done, we took what limited amount of resources we had and distributed it to the town associates that deserved it, or we had a fear of retention. So we've been doing that, and then, like I said, I mean, if it make you feel better, I'll go back to the drawing board and we'll do this as in a pure form of the merit raises.
You
I
misunderstand
am.
what I'm trying to do.
I certainly am.
Well, I think you need to stop and readjust.
Okay.
I merely ask a question. I don't question these things. I wasn't involved in the reasoning of them, but I don't question them. Y'all reached a decision, and I'm sure they were not lightly reached. I'm just saying the question is, now we're starting talking about across the board again. I mean, percentage increase for everybody across the board.
It's not across the board, Mr. Moncari. It just happened, like I said, would you have rather me simplified it and said that 11 associates are not receiving a 3%? I mean, I could have done that, but it worked out when we went down through it. This was much easier because we've got 4 members of council that trust us to take care of this, and this is much easier for them to comprehend than I found out when we overload people. We don't get as much input. And I do the same thing. You come up here, we've got a thing right now with this historical district. I mean, it was so overwhelming, a lot of us turned a blind eye to it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
All right. I withdraw any objection that you might assume that I have. I merely asked a question as to where does this put us?
Okay.
Would that be an answer?
Well, my opinion
Well,
is,
I'm not sure, but
my opinion is we are setting an example for the councils to come not to use across the board raises. That's my opinion. Yes, sir.
I don't think, well, certainly the 3 of you, and I don't know who's going to be on finance or personnel and employment committees in the future, on the next council hold. This is the second across the board that I have recommended since I've been here. And I don't see this committee, I don't see this current board of being interested in doing across the board, so the adjustments are made. In the future, I don't know, I gotta test the waters, I don't know what that's gonna lead us to. Will I recommend it across the board? I don't know if we can afford it next year, we gotta find out. Where do we come up with another $75,000? We gotta figure it out. We could do it this year because I think part of the reason we've been underestimating intentionally some of our revenues. And so we adjusted some of those, and that's covered a good portion of it. We stayed even more, we're still conservative on our revenue estimates. And then we did, and that's part of the reason we were able to put $2.5 million away, because we're always conservative.
Well, I understand that too, and I commend you for it.
But we're getting closer and closer to completion of our plan. And I'd like to reward the folks that have stuck with the program. That day in 2011, when everybody had to start doing purchase orders and stop spending money, and it's just a different world. We're able to take care of folks that do a good job. And I'm cool with the merit thing, and that's all fine. I have no burning desire to give somebody who doesn't deserve a raise. But it's easier when, as a group, we pick those people. All right.
Okay. That's pretty much the takes care of administration. The next item, we've got DBI contingency here, is we're going to recommend the council to fund $39,000 this year. Is that correct?
I think the committee, so everybody knows, the committee, I think last year, had based it on a 60-40 split, and I think a $65,000 budget for DBI at the time, and that the end result would have been what was going to be recommended for this following year would be, it's about a $45,000 or $5,000 reduction, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And this coming budget would just be a cash contribution. It won't be in kind.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is that agreeable to you, Mr. McCure?
Yes.
All right, so the next item is well, we've already discussed, there's no need to beat a dead horse. The next bullet is salaries in the police department. Street salaries, all that's been taken care of. Other than plugging in VEMA's rates, what is left before your staff and this committee to present a budget?
Nothing.
Okay, so on the 6th of June, we'll present council with a budget,
As soon as I get the new rates,
okay?
okay, I'll forward them to everybody, and then we'll plug them in and create a,
Go ahead, as soon as you can do that, print your binders, call me, and I've done this the last 3 years, and it's pleasurable to me, and I hand deliver them. I sit down with the council member. The other 4, there's no reason for Mr. McCure, Mr. Nash, but the other 4, I sit down with them, make an appointment with them. We go over the budget. If they have any questions, we go from there. So I'd like to do that again, okay?
what we're talking about, guys, just for everybody's understanding, VEMA is our electric rates, and they're obligated by contract to provide us the final electric rates beginning July 1 by June 1st. So we don't have the finals. We're still going on projected from January, February that they provide us. And that's what these rates are based on.
All right. You have any other business before us?
I'm good. Unless Jennifer's got something she'd like to share.
Okay, with increase in that too. The burial fee increase.
Oh, burial fees.
All right, where is that?
We haven't changed anything. That's about the middle of the second page.
Yeah, we talked about it at the last meeting. the
Right.
increase for the burial.
You can see the burial fee on the second page.
Right here.
Oops.
Okay.
Okay, second page. The cemetery, we talked about it, and cemetery's in bad shape financially. Now, the town has always supported it, but if we want it to be a separate fund and pay for itself, there's gonna have to be a bunch more money generated, yeah. I mean, I started on December 2nd fooling with the cemetery, and I have sold one grave. And I don't mean an 8 grave space, I mean one single grave for a lady that passed away. And that was $400. And I signed Jimmy Branham, and there was one other one, Mrs. Geneva Dooley passed, and they're gonna have her funeral tomorrow. And I have that is permit number 16 for the year.
Was she sick?
I think her family said she had a stroke, but I don't want to I mean, that's,
So you wanna pass this back to the,
She worked for my father-in-law for many
Did she?
years.
She passed
was
away,
a
yes.
lovely lady.
her funeral
you
is
wanna
on.
run the collection for this through the,
We're
funeral.
gonna try to do that. I broached the topic with Burt McMillan the other day, while he was out there at the cemetery. I'm not sure they really like the idea. I think if it were mandated that they'd had to do it, that the burial permit
I
fees
think
are
it's a
charged.
wonderful idea.
I mean, it is a little uncomfortable sitting down with the family.
Well, I think council's already,
They
didn't
directed me to approach those guys.
approach the funeral directors, yeah.
Well, and also you're getting jabs from the council,
Mm-hmm.
portions of the council, that this is a death tax and it's
Oh, I know.
unfair. And it becomes a political football. And if you put it back, and if you put it as part of the overhead of the funeral home, in essence, then you remove this and the bad taste disappears.
But I think the resolution to it is not gonna be a voluntary one. I think the ordinance is gonna have to say fees are charged directly to the funeral director, or for the funeral home. I don't think it's gonna be a matter of the guys are gonna say, you know, Phil, that's a swell idea, we'd like to do that. I think it's gonna have to be a little bit mandated that this is how we're gonna start doing it.
Do we have to have a public hearing?
I think you do.
We'll go ahead and advertise it. Let's get it done this term.
You're not increasing rates.
Yeah, we're doubling the rates this year too. But that will be handled in the public hearing for the budget
Okay.
and notified.
All right, well, can you do that public hearing too? For the ordinance?
I think the ordinance will be the one that mandates the funeral home to do that.
Question,
Right.
you need a public hearing if you're gonna increase the rate. But do you need a public hearing to transfer the collection of that increase to the funeral?
I think Ken Walden had given an opinion to the council at one time that certain things needed advertising and certain things did not need advertising. I'm an old school guy. Larry Palmer taught me, you have an ordinance, you advertise that sucker. Resolution, no.
That's not part of the ordinance.
Well,
But the increase in the fee will be
okay.
part of it. But who's to collect it is not part of the ordinance, and I think
It is part of the policy. That is
I tell you a
correct.
friendly suggestion. You've got 5 new members up here. You might pay you to get Tessie to print you out or create a document that shows when a hearing is mandated.
I just go with the fail safe.
Took
You
me
can't go wrong with
it took me 8 years to learn half of this job. So I was very happy to see there was a couple of the council people elect are planning on going to the newly elected seminar VML. That's a wonderful resource.
I just do it because you can't get accused of not
Right.
advertising.
Right.
And I just do ordinances that way, I always have. But I think Ken Walden's opinion was that there were certain things you did and certain things you didn't. Certainly anything that has a dollar figure associated with it, changing a late fee or something, I think you need to absolutely have an ordinance.
Well, go ahead and get this advertised because I'd like to get this.
And I'll
In
talk
the
to Joe
budget.
in the meantime. I haven't spoken to him yet, but I did talk to Bert.
All right.
We're proposing to double the permit fees, and so even if we had those figures in place this year, instead of $1,600, we'd have collected $3,200. So it's still
that's a minimal.
minimal as compared to the expense. I mean, we spend that in straightening headstones in 6 months. Headstones that settle, a sink or, replace, or if we hit it with a lawnmower and turn it sideways. Simmons comes and does a dozen at a time. And,
Well, I'm glad Councilman Hamner pointed out how much traffic and
Oh, yeah.
it comes to the community to visit, ends up in our eateries and in our shops. So, but no, that's a losing battle. That cemetery is a losing battle, just like the water lines at Pickett.
losing battle.
That's
Yeah,
losing
you're not getting
battle.
any new customers. You're just spending $16 million to
Yeah.
replace what you already got.
My whole point was not to question the fee increase. I know it's necessary. In fact, it may be too little.
It may be too little. Yeah, it doesn't cover the cost, exactly.
My question was, why create another collection point for it?
Agreed. It's much easier.
It could be collected at the funeral home as part of the process.
No
And in a one-step situation, and it takes the conversation out of it.
It's a little uncomfortable, I will tell you. Now, we do meet with the families now, And it's important because we picked a, we go out there on site and Betty Brandon was able to stand right there and decide what side of her parents she wanted to be on and all that. So that is a good thing.
Well, I don't
We
mean to
actually
offend
meet with them.
anybody or a profession, but, morticians are well schooled in how to get in their pocketbook and keep them calm. So I don't think you've had that training.
They've been doing that for years.
I don't know what the
think-
curriculum is, but I
like
do know that Councilman Moncur graduated summa cum laude from his mortician school, and I'm some of the curriculum was how to present that bill. I'm sure because they're all good at it. What else do you have, Mr. Manager?
Madam Finance Director, anything else you would like me to discuss or? No?
Mr. Moncur?
I'm gonna talk about
Okay,
finance plans. I'll give you 3 minutes.
okay.
Where are we? What's our snapshot? What are we trying to accomplish between now and the end of the year? My goal was to, and I think Jennifer shared this goal, begrudgingly perhaps, but we wanted to put $500,000 in the water and sewer reserve before the 1st of July, and we've got that as of yesterday, I believe. So we have $500,000, not associated with the $2 million that you got. And our goal would be to have 3.7 million. We're at 2.5. That finance plan says October 19. Our target is 3.7 million. Will we make it? We're gonna try. We're gonna do what we can. All right. We're gonna keep on doing the things that we're doing. Okay. And we'll keep putting money aside. One of the reasons I don't want to get too far out right now is we have used all the money in our VDOT line. That slurry seal job we did in North Main, all the money from the last VDOT payments has been used. Okay. So I've got to take the last June payment and make sure that that goes into paving. Because we've got Whitehurst coming, we have a contract with Whitehurst to come back this summer and tar and gravel, Tunstall, Merchant, Luke Street, Fall Street, all that area. So I've got to make sure I've got cash there. And of course, we've got Big Goober water bond payment 1st of August. Now, we will have that, but it's not going to leave a lot of money into that operating account. Okay? But we'll keep on replenishing it, and I just don't want to get too far tighter. We need to
That $500,000 that you put in there, is any of that earmarked for the East End project? Okay, well,
We
that's,
have money set aside for East End in addition. Jennifer made a contribution to it, and of course I can't read it, but I think it's about $210,000 that we have also earmarked for water and sewer replacement, and that will put on the East End and Amelia Avenue water and sewer project. That will be what we're gonna try to focus on for the next couple months. If we have 5,000, 10,000, 10, 15, whatever that we can spare without getting tight on paving, and endangering that water bond payment, we'll put towards making sure anything that happens in East End is an emergency or a surprise or a problem. Okay? Because I can tell you what's gonna happen. You borrow the money, and that covers that project area, but sure enough, there's gonna be a manhole just outside the project area that needs to be done, or an additional section of pipe. So we're gonna make sure we have enough. Our goal is to do East End in its entirety, Amelia Avenue, between the bridge and Nottaway Avenue, replace a manhole at the corner of Fort Avenue and Southwest Avenue. Okay? And we're including that budget, but you had borrowed the money previously to run the water line from the bowling alley to the main gate. We're gonna try to
when you do from Barber's Bridge to Nottaway Avenue, are you planning on putting any lights or anything on that bridge?
I am,
Okay.
but we had talked about it before. The plan is, after we do the water and sewer, and we talked about that, I think the street committee talked, that we'll start approaching the property owners about their contribution for curb and gutter, the 50-50 deal that we had. Okay, and the sidewalk doesn't cost, and then we would upgrade that street, but we would leave a utility strip on the west side. And if you go down across the bridge and you cross Church Street, you can see going down to Viewmaker, the utility strip going down there. That would just stay consistent with the utility strip. Whether we put the lights or not, we'll get there. But we'll certainly leave the utility strip. We may even go ahead and put the conduit in if we want to. We're going to focus on paving and making sure we go into East End without one hand tied behind the back.
The calendar that we came up with, are we deviating from it much? Could you don't have to do it now, Ms. Hardy, would you update that and email it to council and mayor? And I think we're cruising now, right? We just got to go through the motions. All right, yeah, if you would update that and PDF it to council and mayor, and we're just cruise control now, right?
Correct.
Mr. Moncur, do you have any objections to anything in this budget before we go forward? Do you have any objections or discussion about the budget before us
No,
before we go forward? I know Mr. Nash has been catching it, trying to catch up, but, and also I know there's a contractor that's out of commission and he's, Eric's got plenty to do, and I'm sympathetic of that. Will you converse with him? If he has any problems, get the two of us together. Is that suitable to you? And then we'll get it ironed out. I want to go to council. Well, I thought we went to council unanimous a couple of times, but I would like to make the attempt, okay? Any other business?
I'd like to bring up one thing.
Yes, sir.
I'd like this committee to go on record as to recommend it to the full council that we thank Philip and the staff again for their hard work.
Jennifer and the staff.
And I know it needs to be said in front of everybody.
Well, we
And
surely
they've
will.
done a remarkable
We-
job,
We gave,
and I'm proud to work with them.
I have to. It's been a
but I
good
will
4
say
years.
one thing. We had the idea. Jennifer, make sure the beans are in the proper little pots. Y'all took the butt whipping for it. And y'all should take some credit too. Y'all stood up there and said, now we gotta do this, now we gotta do that, now we gotta eat our medicine. Y'all got beat up. We didn't get beat up for it. We got the credit. The town's finances are so much better, but you stood right there in 2011 and sat with me. You remember that? And how many public hearings have you been through when people fussed at you about raising rates and doing all that?
Oh, yeah.
Y'all's 50% of it was no fun either. Trust me.
No, it hadn't been fun, but it's very rewarding to know the position that we're in today compared to when I took this seat. So,
And I will tell you, as of the picket payment that we received towards the beginning of May, we had about $213,000 in the fund that we used to pay that big bond payment. So you'll
yeah,
have
we
to-
couldn't find $213,000 for everything we had. I mean, seriously.
We set that aside. for the bond.
So-
17,000.
I know. So, I don't know if you understand, but we have a what is that bond payment? One of them 49 or 59, and the other one's God. It's
Now we get one of $286,000.
$286,000 bond payment comes, and the practice has been before. That took every nickel we could find from general fund, from I hate to say it, from meter deposits, wherever you could get your hands on. But one of the things that I've been railing for is we're setting aside money, so when that bond payment comes, we still have reserves. So it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm thankful for and grateful that we've got it done.
The one thing that we need to harp on and get everybody, is just because it's in reserves, doesn't mean it's true reserves. It's money that's obligated and is really pre-spent, so therefore it becomes an expense as opposed to an unobligated reserve.
Well, I was gonna say this privately, but I don't. When the new committee's announced and the chairman's announced, I'd be glad to sit down with you and that chairman, and we need to get these people. We mentioned the picket water lines, but we've got these air packs coming up. We need to spend some attention to our infrastructure. That the police department and the fire station are getting up there in age. I'd be glad to go over my thoughts, how we got here.
Sure.
I want to caution the next council that we're almost there. Please don't stop. You've got 2.5 in the bank now. You could probably raise $3 million if you had to. So we're almost to the 3.7, and then it's time to look at some fun stuff. So
Yeah.
when would you ever dream that you would have got $50,000 out of this council to help somebody replace their house? So we're almost there. We just need to stay the course.
And so we do have the air pack. Dion came to us and said, we believe the true figure, they went to some Fire Chiefs Association meeting, the true figure is $247,000.
I'd like to make a prediction.
Before 47.
I heard on Fox a report on, after the shooting and all, about police protective vests. And they came up and said, now this vest here will prevent a rifle projectile. Will not protect from a rifle, but will protect from a pistol. And it went on to, so therefore, be looking for a demand for an upgrade.
Oh, yeah, well, a lot of it,
250,000 cash, not anywhere that we've discussed previously. We
Right.
have $250,000 in the capital outlay. So when they hand us a bill for $247,000 for air packs, it's cash paid, no borrowing, no finance.
right,
And we don't even have to borrow from ourselves. We've got the cash.
Right.
That's,
sounds good. Any other business?
I'm good.
I'll adjourn at 4:38. Thank you. You need me for anything, Philip?